Extras Death, I Am the Son of Hades Chapter 11 to 20. Remember to subscribe, it helps. For faster updates check ko-fi.com/mlightnovel. Author, Failed Writer 101 TTS by Mr.light. Chapter 11, Discussion between crazy bastards while having a tea. What the fuck was this woman talking about? He gave a metaphorical answer. Why was she taking his words seriously? Are you sure? If you are okay, an old woman like me, no. The doors were pushed open. Amelia rushed inside, followed by Clara. The bodyguard looked apologetically at the Queen for being unable to stop Amelia from eavesdropping. Nobody is marrying anyone. Don't reject him so fiercely. He has quite a few good qualities. If you spend time with him, maybe you will come to like him. At her mother's words, Amelia's gaze unconsciously moved towards Neo's lower half. She looked away with a flushed face. The Queen noticed her actions. Oh my, what did you two do before coming here? We did nothing. And stop changing the subject. Amelia sat on the same sofa as her mother and glared at Neo. If a stare could kill, he would have been skinned and boiled 1,000 times by now. The tyrant Queen, Elizabeth, picked up her teacup and sipped it. You've heard my daughter? I don't think I can give you my most prized possession. Neo frowned. Only Elizabeth knew about the replica of Poseidon's trident. It seemed she wanted to negotiate with Neo in front of her daughter with the code word. While Amelia thought of the most prized possession as a marriage with her mother and her, in truth, the Queen and Neo would talk about the weapon. So, Elizabeth continued. How about another offer? I'll hear it at least. I will let you live if you promise to save me. She placed the teacup on the table. Her expression said it was her final offer. As expected of a tyrant, Neo knew this was going to happen. Mom, why are you doing this? Amelia asked with a frustrated expression. She knew nothing was going to change her mother's thoughts. Similar situations happened countless times throughout her childhood. Although she hoped Neo's strength would deter her, after hearing everything through the door, she knew her expectations were not going to be fulfilled. Elizabeth looked at Neo to see how he would react. But he picked his teacup with a smile. It's a realistic offer. Sadly, I can't accept it. So you are ready to die? That's the problem. Neo took a sip. I'm immortal. Huh? Are you bluffing again? Amelia reacted. Her mother and Clara pondered over Neo's words seriously. The children of the 10 high gods and the 3 great gods inherited powerful skills. Zeus' familiar could control lightning and Poseidon's lineage reigned supreme over the oceans. With that logic, Hades' descendant should be able to command death. There has never been a Hades child in the history. We can't predict if his words are truth or lie, Clara thought as she stood behind Elizabeth's sofa. Neo's words took the tyrant Queen by surprise. However, she recovered quickly. If that is the case, my offer won't work. She added, how about I torture you if you don't save me? I can start by pulling out your nails, dripping hot wax on your skin and slowly use worse torture. Sounds painful. Neo maintained his calm. The tyrant Queen frowned at his composure. He put his teacup down. But I think I can endure 3 days. After that, I'll be fairly compensated for my troubles. Neo did not say who would compensate him. However, all of them knew the answer. The people in the audience hall were happy to hear about the Queen's death. Someone placed a curse on the Queen. No one except Amelia was trying to save her. Almost everyone was somehow helping in the rebellion against the tyrant Queen. Those people, when they find Neo endured 3 days of torture and refused to save the Queen even though he could, would treat him like a hero. They had to. After all, a rebellion was justified only until they had justice on their side. Not treating Neo as a hero would work against them. So, it was checkmate for the tyrant Queen. You came prepared. The tyrant Queen refilled his cup. I'll accept your offer. Crazy bastards. They are talking about murder and torture while snacking. Clara thought she was the only sane person in the room. Even Amelia had been desensitized to death after seeing her mother's actions for years. While Amelia bit her lips, Unable to reject or accept her mother's deal with Neo, the Tyrant Queen added, "However, I need a proof of your capabilities." "As you wish." Neo stood up and approached the potted plants on the window. The flowers had yellow star-shaped petals. They were beautiful. Necrotic touch. Wisps of black smoke came out of the tip of his fingers. He could feel the blood in his arteries and veins burning. It was exhausting. Maintaining the skill for a single second was as draining as traveling on the Azure Dragon's back for a day. However, he didn't hurry. He maintained the far section of calmness and touched the petals. The flowers immediately withered when the black smoke seeped into them. They lost their colors. Just as they were about to die, Neo called the black smoke back, and the flowers regained their life. Neo turned around. He smiled. The Tyrant Queen had a shocked expression on her face. Even she could not remain calm after seeing what he had done. It looked like a curse. "You can cancel your curse after it has been casted," she spoke. It was an impossible feat. Curses, once activated, could only be transferred from one target to another. Neo did not correct her misconception of his abilities. His magic spell was tremor-ranked and thus allowed him to have a greater control over its impact. Just like the deal he had with the Tyrant Queen, he had no intention of telling her the truth. He had lied. Only the curse caster could save the queen. Neo could not do it. And the caster's identity was never revealed, since the mermaid country was already destroyed by the time this backstory was shown. However, Neo had a plan, and he had already executed it. Now he just had to wait for the result. Neo had a plan. He had already executed it. Now he just had to wait for the result. The Tyrant Queen nodded after seeing his abilities. "Will do as you asked." Suddenly, a screen appeared before Neo's eyes. Quest, objective, save the Tyrant Queen, Elizabeth. The mermaid country is isolated in the harsh seas of Alaspa. Its unfavorable location has led it to be exploited by other countries since its establishment. Elizabeth changed the situation through her overwhelming might. With her crowning, she made sure no country and demigod could look down on her homeland or exploit it. Her radical methods, while uplifting for the mermaid country, earned her the nickname Tyrant Queen. After years of peace, the people of mermaid country have forgotten the times when they were exploited. In their eyes, the Tyrant Queen is nothing but an uncontrolled slaughterer who is ruining their reputation and are making enemies with powerful demigods. Believing that the Tyrant Queen's actions would soon bring retribution, the mermaid country has decided to revolt, to remove the Tyrant Queen before her enemies destroys their country in order to eliminate the Tyrant Queen. Reward, Immortal X plus 50, Water Affinity, Failure, Ire of Melia de Beaufort. Do you wish to accept the quest? There were many important details in the quest description. He scrolled above and reread it carefully. The story was as he remembered. The rewards were good. 50 exp was equal to using the immortal skill 50 times. It would save him 50 days of training. As far as Neo knew, nobody could gain an extra affinity. They were born with fixed affinities and, in rare cases, the demigods could awaken their dormant affinities after going through a life-death situation. Gaining a new affinity was unheard of. For this type of reward, the failure was only receiving Amelia's anger. It was clear what he needed to choose. Quest accepted. Since you've accepted the request, we can start now, the Queen spoke. She smiled. We'll purge the palace. Mom, are you going to kill everyone? Not everyone, sweetie. Only those who seem to have a hand in the rebellion. Almost all the palace people supported the revolt unanimously. One of them might have been the caster of the curse. Elizabeth did know the identity of the caster. She could not do the purge as she might have killed the caster unknowingly. If that happened, she would have been unable to lift the curse. Her hands had been tied. However, with Neo's arrival, she did not need the caster to remove the curse. As you wish, my queen, Clara said. When can you start the remedy? The queen asked Neo. Tomorrow. I need to make some preparations today, he answered. The Tyrant Queen saw no problem with the Neo's appeal. The curse casted on her rendered her, an exalted demigod, helpless. It happened because she had no defense against the curse, and the curse was applied over the years without her knowledge. But that didn't mean the curse was weak. To work on an exalted demigod, it had to be incredibly powerful. Taking a day to complete the preparations was already a lot less than what she had imagined. If he was not the king of Hades, Elizabeth would have thought Neo was lying. "Clara, call my personnel guards and, until tomorrow, you will guard Neo," Elizabeth ordered. "Amelia, you will stay with me while Clara is protecting him." She sent them after the short briefing. Just as he was about to leave, he noticed Amelia staring at him with a glare. The doors closed and he heard a chuckle from Clara. She quickly wiped the smile before returning to her expressionless face. "You don't need to be so uptight with me," Neo said. "I'll show you the guest room," she said as she ignored his advice. Two entered a room in a secluded corner of the palace. Neo was appreciating the grandeur of the room when Clara locked the door behind him. She swiftly approached him and covered his mouth with her hand. The dagger in her hand pierced Neo's neck. His eyes widened. He choked on his blood as he stared down at the dagger. "It was you." Never had he imagined the leader of the Queen's personnel guard to join the rebellion. Clara grabbed his face and muttered, "Let's see if you are really immortal." She activated the curse. Neo's skin twisted and it began to rot at a visible pace. However, before he could even feel the pain, he was already dead. Clara let go of the dagger. His body fell with a dull thud. She waited. Would he really stand back? Was he actually immortal? How could a mere awakened demigod cheat death? It did not matter. If he was an immortal, she would imprison and hide him until the tyrant queen died. 10 seconds passed, 20 seconds passed, a minute went by. Neo did not revive. He was not an immortal. Clara released the sigh she had been holding unconsciously. She felt relieved. "Come." She snapped her fingers. At the command, the shadows inside the room trembled. They shrunk and merged, and transformed into a boy with green hair and yellow eyes. "Why did you kill him, sis?" "He can heal the queen. I've verified his abilities." "That means," his boy's face hardened, "the queen will soon do a purge." "Not soon. She is about to start right now." Clara looked at the blood spilling out of Neo's neck. "We need to spread the news of his death to stop the purge. The queen will realize I've joined the revolt. So, I'll go into hiding for a few days." Her brother, Paul, nodded. No matter the cause, Clara could not be captured. Because she was the leader of the revolt, and the caster who used the curse on the tyrant queen. The revolt would fail if she were caught by the queen. "Take his body. We will pin the blame of his death on the queen and say the queen killed him because he couldn't save her." Paul did not understand who Neo was to be able to cancel his sister's curse. However, he knew now was not the time to ask. "I'll do as you've ordered." He shape-shifted to a splitting image of Clara and left the room. Neo opened his eyes beneath the dark sky. His plan worked. He met a person who was directly related to the rebellion. Since it was Clara, the original plan had to be changed. The job became easier. He could skip most of the steps, and heal the queen while stopping the rebellion. It was all good. "I feel like shit." Neo knew Clara had the ability to use curses, but he never expected her to betray Elizabeth. There was an important reason behind his oversight. In the novel, the resurrection ritual was attempted by the protagonist and Amelia to revive the tyrant queen. They used the divine water pond for the ritual. During the ritual, the queen refused to be resurrected. She told them to revive Clara, who died during the battle with the villain that destroyed the mermaid country. For Elizabeth, Clara was like her own daughter. She raised her and his brother, Paul, with love and care after she saved them from the pirates. A feeling of disgust rose in Neo's heart. Not only did Clara stab Elizabeth in the back, she took care of Amelia and replaced her mother. Was it Clara's way of apologizing for her mistakes? It was revolting. "Oh great child of monarch, you returned earlier than what we had decided." The grating, yet somehow soothing, voice snapped him out of his thoughts. He looked ahead and saw the Grim Reaper. "A situation happened and I was sent back here." Neo noticed something. The Grim Reaper was not surprised he came to the underworld without using the resurrection ritual. Does he know about the immortal skill? As if reading his thoughts, the Grim Reaper spoke. It is fine if you came early. You have evolved and your soul has been strengthened. The limit of corruption your soul can endure has increased. The Grim Reaper continued. And with your skill, you should be able to enter the underworld at your discretion. However, do keep in mind you have to return eventually. The Grim Reaper was not looking at Neo but above him. Neo followed his gaze and noticed the screen. Time remaining, 11 hours, 58 minutes. Time passed slower in the underworld. 2 days and they were equal to 1 day in the world of living. The time on the screen was how long he could stay in the land of death. When the timer reached 0, he would be forcefully revived. He could return before time was up if he wanted. Can you see this screen? Neo asked. We cannot, O great child of Monarch. After receiving the answer, Neo thought about what he should do. Returning right now was useless. His body would be with Clara. She would kill him again after he revived. Immortal gave him the chance to resurrect once per day. He used the chance already. If he died again tonight, he was dead. Time remaining, 11 hours, 55 minutes, almost 12 hours. It was equal to 6 hours in the world of living. Neo died around 3 p.m. After spending 6 hours of real-world time in the underworld, he would be revived at 9 p.m. He would gain the revival chance at 12 p.m. 3 hours. I can't risk dying as soon as I revive, or I'll die permanently. Neo had to somehow stay alive for 3 hours after he returned. He tried to think of a way but nothing came to his mind. In the end, it all boiled down to luck. If he was revived in a dangerous place or a safe place. What will you do now, O great child of Monarch? Will return or will you wait? I will train in the underworld. There was a high chance the rebels had his body with them. After the revival, he would need to fight his way out of their lair. He was weak right now. His progress in the underworld would decide if he could hold out his own against the rebels or die without achieving anything. Standing up, he noticed the surroundings properly for the first time. The sea of blood-red colors stretched beyond the horizon and something large continuously moved under the sea. His death affinity blared alarms as soon as he thought about stepping into the water. Don't go there, his senses were telling him. The beach, made of black sands, had a putrid odor. Bones of unknown animals jutted out at irregular intervals. At the far end, a white fog hid everything. The sky was covered in eternal darkness, and 3 gigantic eyes looked down from above like moons. Underworld was as unpleasant as ever. However, he felt comfortable there, as if he had returned home. After completing the survey of the surroundings, Neo came to a conclusion. There is nothing to train with here. His only magic spell was Necrotic Touch. It needed a target to activate. Since he could not use it on the Grim Reaper for obvious reasons, he was left with no way to train. He clenched his feet. He needed to increase his strength urgently. It was impossible without training. O great child of Monarch, do you perhaps need our assistance? I need a target to train. Can you help with it? Neo decided to be shameless and made the request. It will be our pleasure. Clouds of smoke rushed out of the Grim Reaper's hand and formed a scythe. He thumped butt of the weapon on the ground. The beach shook. A simple action from the Grim Reaper brought an earthquake. The tremors quickly died down but Neo noticed something was off. His face hardened. The bones protruding out of the ground were moving. They are ancient warriors of the underworld, the Gulwaks, created during the Titanomachy War. After the war, they outlived their purpose and were allowed to rest. Now, thousands of years later, all of them have disappeared. That doesn't mean they were destroyed. The creation of the monarch are not so feeble to be defeated by time. They still sleep beneath the underworld, waiting for the day they are to be called again. Beware, their thirst for battle and blood has only increased after years of hunger. An arm crawled out of the beach. Neo could feel the aura of death multiplying by dozens of times. His own aura was a joke in front of it. He gulped. His throat was parched. Slowly followed by the arm, a head and torso appeared. It looked similar to a human skeleton except for the two horns, green flames burning in its eye sockets, and the sword in its hand. Its cracked, dirty bones made it look old and ferocious. Dangerous. His senses were screaming at him to run away. What is this? It's getting hard to breathe. A thick aura of death covered the skeleton. When he used his death affinity to sense it, all he saw was a human-shaped darkness with emerald eyes carrying a sword wrapped in dried blood and flesh. Would my necrotic touch work against it? Neo asked. It will, O great child of Monarch. There was no time to ask why the spell that corrupted one's life force could work on a Gulwak. The skeleton rushed at Neo with a blitz. Neo crossed his arm to protect himself. Something snapped when the attack connected and he was thrown away like a rag doll. His body bounced several times before coming to a stop. Special lesson, it's strong even without muscles, he thought. Neo's training with death skill increased his mental endurance. Thanks to it, he ignored the pain, and looked for the Gulwak's next attack. Instantly, his vision was covered with a foot coming down to stomp his face. There was no time to rest. He jerked his head. The Gulwak's attack missed, but it didn't let up, as it raised its sword. Neo, on the ground, was unable to dodge. He used the necrotic touch and grabbed the Gulwak's feet. The spell didn't activate. Neo's divine energy control was poor and he tried to use the magic spell in a hurry. Thus, he failed to trigger the spell. Just as the Gulwak was about to swing the blade, Neo, in a hurry, pulled its leg, and made it fall over. He grabbed the sword that had fallen out of the Gulwak's hand and swiftly created a distance between them. Huff, huff, huff. Gulwak was strong. The skeleton stood up with a low growl. Its eyes were fixed on the sword Neo stole from it. But Neo wasn't looking back at the Gulwak. Shit. There were multiple Gulwaks crawling out of the beach. It had friends? Neo could feel his left arm throbbing from pain. It almost broke during the first exchange. The situation was quickly taking a turn for the worse. He couldn't use his spell and, oh great child of the Monarch, as I thought, is it too difficult for the current you? Neo held the sword with his right hand while breathing heavily. Should I ask for help from the Grim Reaper, or maybe tell him to lower the difficulty? Neo froze, unable to believe the words that appeared inside his head. What am I thinking? Did I try to run away? Again? Am I going to be a loser in this world too? Didn't I say I don't want to be mediocre? He tightened his grip on the sword. I need to make the effort. There is nothing free in this world. Fight. If I can't win, I'll die fighting. I won't become a failure again. Neo renewed his resolve. No need. I can do it on my own, he answered the Grim Reaper. Amused, the Grim Reaper watched. Neo calmed his trembling arms and drowned out unnecessary thoughts. The Gulwak rushed at him with a roar. Neo did not move. He just stared at it. Focus. I can't activate the necrotic touch instantaneously. Using divine energy is like moving arms or breathing. Everyone can do it. Right now, having awakened the divine energy recently, I'm like a patient who woke up from coma. He continued to analyze himself. The Gulwak covered half of the distance in the blink of an eye. However, Neo continued. After all, knowing oneself was half the battle won. My muscles capable of controlling divine energy are weak. They will improve as long as I train regularly. But that won't help me now. What can I do so win at this moment? The Gulwak was almost in front of him. It stomped its foot and punched. Neo grabbed its fist with his left hand. He heard a crunch, but he ignored it, and swung the sword with his other hand. The blade beheaded the Gulwak. Its body, lifeless, crashed. Neo's left arm flailed like a dangling branch. It hurt more than anything he experienced in his previous life. However, dying was more painful. He experienced it multiple times. Unlike what he heard, it did not reduce the pain he was feeling right now. It still hurt like a bitch. The previous pain did not make the current pain painless. It did, however, teach him to continue moving even if it was agonizing. Two Galwags attacked him from different sides. The one of the left swung the axe and the second Galwag stabbed the spear. Neo crouched. The attacks passed over his head. He stabbed the sword in the axe-wielding Galwag's foot and activated the necrotic touch. If he could not trigger the spell instantaneously, he just had to activate it beforehand. Black smokes came out his hand, however, they did nothing. The Galwag, having received an attack, growled and tried to attack when suddenly Neo let go of the sword and used an uppercut. The necrotic touch hit its chin. Its bones began to crumble. Neo was about to continue when he felt a chill. He grabbed the sword and swung it behind him, only to feel a resistance, as he blocked the spear luckily. While his attention went to the spear-wielding Galwag at his heels, the first Galwag slashed towards his shoulder. The blade penetrated deep into his skin. It slowed, and the Galwag increased the strength behind the axe. Neo grunted and grabbed the Galwag's arm to stop it from cleaving him in half. He struggled to hold back his own against the two Galwags at the same time. He was losing his strength. Neo failed to realize his left hand had somehow healed. Before the spear-wielding Galwag moved, Neo increased the intensity of necrotic touch. He applied 2 more stacks on the axe-wielding Galwag's hand instead of smoke. Black ink dripped out of his palm. It spread on the Galwag's arm and its elbow shattered like a glass. The Galwag lost its balance after losing the arm. An opportunity. Neo kicked the spear-wielding Galwag, and rushed at the first Galwag whose limb was destroyed. He grabbed its head and used the last remaining stack of necrotic touch on its head. With another necrotic touch applied to its jaw, the spell's strength increased and the Galwag's face crumbled into dust. Suddenly, the second Galwag pierced his left leg from behind. Fueled by adrenaline, Neo grabbed the axe logged in his shoulder and smashed it on top of the spear-wielding Galwag's head. The necrotic touch finished the first Galwag at the same time. Neo fell to his knees. The 3 Galwags were dead. And he was at death's door. His arm, shoulder, and leg were, Neo noticed his arm was no longer broken and the shoulder stopped bleeding. It was slowly but surely healing. After he pulled the spear out of his leg, the injury started to close itself. What is this? It's your god blood. You are the heir of Underworld, and it's helping you. What the Grim Reaper described was not a skill, but an innate body constitution. The children of great ocean god Poseidon were stronger when they fought underwater. Those who carried the blood of high god Apollo grew powerful along with the sun's ascent and became weak when the sun disappeared. The heirs of the high god Dionysus were gained a boost in the task they did while being drunk. Neo was similar. His stats and regenerative ability gained a massive amplification in the underworld. It is also why you, a being of death, are weak in the world of living. Neo's face stiffened. Was the reason why he was always felt tired, exhausted, and nauseous because of his bloodline? Didn't it mean he was under a constant debuff? The Grim Reaper hit the beach with his scythe. Tremors, stronger than the last time, appeared. Trials of today will become your strength for tomorrow. As long as you keep advancing, you might learn to make the underworld descend into the world of living. When that happens, I'll be unstoppable. Neo understood what the Grim Reaper meant. The corner of his lips rose as he envisioned the future where he could fight without any restriction and have a constant buff. Glory awaits you, O great child of Monarch. So, you must train hard. The tremors died down and 8 Galwags came out. Neo's vision of the beautiful future shattered. Beautiful or not, he would have to survive to first. Azure Spire Palace Paul, who had taken Clara's appearance, met with the Queen's personal guards. Leader, is there something wrong? Why are you here, Captain? Captain, who was the kid who came to the audience hall today? The members gathered around Paul. Despite being far stronger than Paul, they did not detect his disguise. Paul released the false appearance. It's you, the members sighed. They noticed Paul was not making fun of them like he usually did after they were caught in his pranks. Sis, he changed his words. The leader has gone into hiding because she killed the kid we saw today. He had the ability to remove her curse, so it had to be done. Paul spoke with a grave expression. The Queen has ordered a purge. It's time for you all to choose a side." The Queen's personal guards looked at each other. They understood why a purge was happening. Their gazes grew determined after hearing the Tyrant Queen's cruel choice. "We've made our decision long ago." "That's right. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We aren't rebels. We are the patriots who are protecting our country from a tyrant." Paul raised their morale. "The plan is to spread the rumors of the kid's death. It will corner the Queen and make her halt the purge." "You call that a plan?" Suddenly, an old man, the vice leader of the Queen's personal guards, cut off Paul mid-sentence. "The Queen will go berserk if she gets cornered. Who knows how many will be slaughtered when that happens." "That's true," Paul agreed. "Do you have a better idea, Vice Leader?" "We'll do a purge as the Queen ordered." "Wah, but instead of the palace people, we will bring out the prisoners and execute them inside the palace. While the curse has weakened the Queen, her senses are nothing to scoff at. We will use it against her. By killing the prisoners, we can create chaos and the palace will be filled with stench of blood. It will fool the Queen. In the meantime, we will evacuate the palace people before she catches on," the vice leader explained. That's a very good plan. Why didn't I think of it before?" Paul muttered. The Queen was at the death's door. As long as they waited, she would grow weak and would no longer be a threat. "Because you are still green behind the ears," the vice leader snorted. The members of the Queen's personal guard cheered for the vice leader. They got to work. Half of them went to the underground prison to bring out the prisoners, while the other half started the evacuation. The palace people were not given the reason behind the evacuation. They found it weird that they were using a hidden exit to leave the palace. However, no one raised a question since it was the order of Queen's personal guards. The screams echoed in the palace for hours. While most of the Queen's personal guards were busy with the task, the leader and the vice leader met with the Tyrant Queen in the audience hall. The hall was deserted save for the Queen on the throne, the vice leader and the leader, who was Paul in Clara's disguise. "How is the progress?" the Tyrant Queen asked. "The task is going smoothly thanks to the Queen's grace," Paul said. He noticed the purple markings appearing on the Tyrant's Queen body. The curse entered its last stage. Nonetheless, looking at Queen's demeanor, no one could tell she had one foot in the grave. The Queen nodded and looked at Clara. "Since you are here, I take it task Clara is still guarding Neo?" "Indeed, it is as you." Paul froze. A look of horror appeared on his face. The Queen knew he was Paul in Clara's disguise. How was that possible? While Paul was only an awakened demigod, his camouflage was perfect. No one, not even exalted demigods, could see through his disguise. "Why aren't you answering?" the Queen asked. Yes, Sis is guarding him. I took her appearance to smoothen the process of purge," Paul answered despite being shaken. The Queen tilted her head. Her eyes narrowed. "You just lied." She treated Clara and Paul as her own children. While she couldn't tell it if Paul guised himself as other, it was easy for her to tell him out when he became Clara. None of their habits were same. Similarly, it was easy to notice when Paul lied after being caught red-handed. She could clearly remember how many times Paul, as a kid, sneaked into the kitchen for late-night snacks and lied in the morning when she asked him about it. A small smile appeared on her face and she hid it quickly. "Where is Clara and who is guarding Nia right now?" she asked. Paul was frozen stiff with fear after having his lie revealed. He couldn't think and couldn't answer. His heart was beating so loudly he felt it would break his ribs. If he lied again and got caught, it would be the end. Suddenly, the vice leader grabbed his collar and threw him towards the door. "Run. Tell others we were exposed. I'll hold her back and bite time for you." "Oh, okay." Paul stood up and tried to rush out of the door. "What are you two doing?" The doors suddenly shut close by themselves. "What do you mean you were exposed?" Hearing the chilling voice, Paul pulled out his sword and got ready to fight alongside the vice leader. The vice leader shouted, "Paul, I told you to run. You can't do anything against." He couldn't complete his words. His body was abruptly crushed into a paste of meat and blood. It was as if he had been hit by an invisible hammer. The tyrant queen did not even lift her finger. She just sat there menacingly. "Paul," the chilling voice commanded. "Lower your sword." She was not stupid. She knew Clara had the ability to cast curse. But they were her children. She treated them no different from Amelia. So, why were her children trying to kill her? An unfathomable amount of pressure descended on the Azure Spire Palace. Anyone inside it was brought to their knees. They found themselves unable to move. They felt like they were being crushed by gallons of water. Cracks started to appear on the foundation of the palace and the whole place shook. "Drop your sword, Paul." Paul gritted his teeth and glared at the queen. "I won't." His bones snapped. However, he did not heed her words. The pressure suddenly disappeared and the queen stared at him. Worry and anxiety were hidden deep in her eyes. Her gaze was focused on his bleeding body. But her face remained impassive. The doors of the hall opened. Amelia, along with several her personal guards, rushed inside. "Mum, are you okay? What was that?" "Don't go there, princess. The queen has gone berserk due to the curse." The guards stopped her. They silently placed a sword behind Amelia's back, warning the queen to stop, or there would be consequences. The queen realized Amelia had not betrayed her. A wave of relief washed over her heart. She could crush the guards with a snap. But her gaze returned to Paul. They must have killed Neo or imprisoned him. There was a high chance Neo was dead. The tyrant queen never believed he was immortal. She only threatened him back then to see how he would react. With Neo dead and Clara in hiding, there was no way for the queen to save herself. After her death, Amelia would suffer. Because she was a tyrant's daughter. "What are you doing?" Paul glared at the guard who had placed a hidden sword behind Amelia without her knowledge. While he was against the queen's tyranny, he knew Amelia was innocent. His words cleared the queen's thoughts. She knew what she had to do. "Get out." She waved her hand and a powerful gust of wind threw all of them out of the audience hall. The doors closed behind them. Amelia stammered to her feet and banged her wrists on the door. "Mum, open the doors. Open, it. Hig. Please." Tears flowed out of her eyes. She turned to Paul and held his shoulder with trembling hands. "We need to find Neo. He can save Mum. We have to hurry." Paul looked away. Amelia did not know about Clara's ability to use curses. In fact, even among the rebels, only the queen's personal guards knew about it after they decided to rebel. Curses were frowned upon. In the past, the tyrant queen told Clara to keep it a secret for her safety. Without knowing anything, Amelia was in the dark and requested for help from the rebels. "We can't find Neo. He went missing few hours ago. Sis is searching for him." Paul spoke. "What?" The despair in Amelia's eyes was slowly replaced by anger. "Did the rebels kidnap him?" she asked with seething rage. "I don't know. But, before Sis left, she told me his disappearance was strange. He wouldn't have been kidnapped if he listened to Sis. Sis said he kept wandering in the palace, almost as if he wanted to be kidnapped." "I see." Amelia's expression darkened. Thinking that the queen might come after them at any moment, Paul hurried. "Amelia, you need to evacuate. The queen has gone berserk. I'm worried she might harm you too." "But, Amelia, stop hesitating. Face it that we can't save the queen now," Paul shouted. He spoke his next words in a low voice. "You are this kingdom's future. If you die, we would lose everything." Amelia knew what Paul meant. The tremor-ranked spell of the mermaid country could be inherited by two people at a time. With the queen on death's door, Amelia was the last possessor of the spell. If she died, the spell that protected the kingdom would disappear forever. "I promise you, Amelia, I will do my best to save Mother. So, leave it to me and go." Listening to his words, Amelia broke down into tears. Underworld Neo's back rested against the sandy beach. His clothes were ripped and dried blood was stuck on his body. "I feel like shit." The beach was filled with corpses of gullwax. Some were slashed in half, some had crumbled into dust, and some had been brutally bashed with fists. He absent-mindedly stared at the sky. Time remaining, 0 hour, 30 minutes. He had been fighting for only 12 hours? Wow, fuck. It felt like days to him. I'll kill myself if the growth I felt was also an illusion. Saying so, pulled up the status screen. Neo Hargraves, rank, grade 5 awakened, divine energy purity, grade 1 awakened, stats, strength, 19 speed, 21 dexterity, 17 constitution, 14 luck, 0 affinity, death, shadow, darkness, void, magic spell, necrotic touch bloodline, monarch of death, unique skill, death, immortal quest, save the queen, in progress. His strength and constitution increased by 3. It was a massive increase. Normally, a demigod needed to train for a few weeks to increase the stat by 3. Neo felt his growth speed was justified. His training intensity, unlike normal people, was beyond nightmare difficulty. He could not remember how many times he broke his bones and was nearly decapitated. These sick gulwags were perverts who liked to behead their enemies. Audience hall. The tyrant queen stared in the air absent-mindedly. Where did things go wrong? She never experienced love. She trained until her hands bled. She stood against the countries trying to exploit the mermaid nation alone. Why was she being turned into the evil? Hadn't she always put the country before her own well-being? To be honest, she did not care about the rebellion, being called evil, or how others called her a tyrant. It happened because of her own choices. She wouldn't deny them. But watching her own children leading the rebellion broke her heart. She covered her face with her palms. Tears slipped from in between her fingers. They were the tears of a mother. She could barely maintain the countenance of a tyrant. How could she care about dignity after what she saw? Time passed. Elizabeth wiped her tears and stood up. She left the audience hall. Her steps carried the grandeur of a queen. Her gaze was cold and confident like a tyrant, and the feeble mother was no longer to be seen. The palace was empty. The tyrant queen returned to her room. To rest. Forever. Azure Spire Palace. Paul carried Neo's corpse towards the queen's location. It was for an important task. Neo, an awakened demigod, could cure Queen's curse. He was capable and thus might have someone powerful as a backer. If Neo's backer found out he was killed by the rebels, they would be thrown from fire into frying pan. Paul planned to pin the death of Neo on the tyrant queen. This way, the rebels would not be blamed, and they might be able to befriend Neo's backer. Where did she go? Paul thought. The queen was not inside the audience hall. He searched the palace and did not find her anywhere. She is not in the office, not in the treasury, and not in the weapons barrack. Where is she? Don't tell me. He rushed towards her room. Opening the door, he found her inside. A hollow laugh left his mouth. This fucking bitch. The queen sat on a chair, her eyes closed. Most of her body was covered in purple veins, and she seemed asleep. Did she come here to die like this? How far will she go to maintain her dignity as the tyrant? It's because you do things like this that you've made enemies everywhere. She must have been in terrible pain. Nonetheless, her expression remained stone cold. It irritated Paul. If it's going to be like this, I would rather kill you with my own hands. He was thankful that Clara wasn't here, because she would have definitely stopped him. Even the reason Clara casted the curse was because Paul persuaded her. Paul threw Neo's corpse aside and pulled out his sword. He approached the queen. His arms shook and his breathing became ragged. He could not help but worry if the queen would wake up. While his complete focus on the queen, Neo's corpse moved. The injury on his neck rapidly healed and he opened his eyes. As he woke up, he realized 40% of his divine energy was used to heal his body before his soul was revived. What a shitty skill. Paul snapped his head towards his back when he heard the voice. Before he could see Neo, Neo used necrotic touch and grabbed his face. Black ink dripped from Neo's hand after he applied 3 stacks. You're alive? Paul, his face covered in black ink, jumped back, dumbfounded. He could clearly remember the sensation of Neo's cold corpse. How? Are you an illusion created by the Queen? Neo did not respond. He stared at him with cold eyes. In truth, Neo was in a daze. Using 3 stacks of necrotic touch used another 30% of his divine energy, leaving him only 30% of the total energy reserves. He was anemic after burning so much god blood. Slightly out of it, he looked at the room. The Queen, asleep, was resting on the chair. He stood near the wall, and it was dark outside. The only enemy inside the room was Paul. Why aren't you responding? Paul pounced on Neo. Just as his sword was about to hit him, Neo activated the spell. The dark ink on Paul's face seeped into his skin and began to devour his lifespan. Argh! What is this? It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. Unlike the gullwax, Paul's body did not shatter, and he seemed to be under immense pain. Was it because he was a living soul? Neo watched him calmly. He did not like torturing people, but there was no need to show sympathy for those who killed him. Now, how do I call your sister? If I remember correctly, both of you have an artifact that tells you if the other's life is in danger. As soon as Neo finished his words, his death affinity reacted. An overwhelming amount of danger was coming at him. He didn't dodge. The wall next to him broke as a hand came through it and grabbed his neck. What did you do to him? Clara questioned, enraged. She walked through the wall as if it was made of paper. Answer me, she spoke in an icy voice. Orbs of liquid metal materialized in the room. They transformed into weapons aimed at Neo. Neo, unaffected by intimidation, grabbed her arm and applied 2 stacks of necrotic touch. Clara sensed something was wrong and hurriedly threw him away. He crashed through the broken wall. This is? Clara noticed the black markings on her hand. Her face hardened as she recalled Neo's curse ability. She could feel her lifespan draining at a snail's pace. It was not dangerous for her, but it could kill Paul, an awakened demigod, within a week, and Paul had a stronger curse cast on him. Neo did not stand up. He remained lying on the wall's rubble and stared at the roof in a daze. It's a death mark, he explained. Once that appears on your body, you will die, no questions asked. Clara clenched her teeth. Her brother's blood-curdling scream filled her with despair and anger. Desperate to stop Neo, she stabbed a sword into his leg and twisted it. Release the curse on my brother, or, her words were struck in her throats. She thought Neo would scream or cry from the pain, just like her brother, but he stared at her with a calm, unmoving gaze. I told you, he spoke unhurriedly. I'm immortal. Death threats or torture wouldn't work on me. In panic, Clara forgot Neo was supposed to be dead. Her face went under countless changes when she realized he was actually immortal. While Clara was frozen, Neo stood up and approached the table with a limp. He sat with a thump before he prepared the teacups. Where are the tea leaves? He opened the teapot. Clara, can you get me some tea leaves? They should be in the cabinet. What? Tea leaves? In the cabinet? Why are you so calm in the current situation? Her face twisted into a grimace. What's wrong with getting snacks? I'm parched and hungry. The Queen was halfway through the door of death. Her brother was screaming in pain. Dozens of weapons were aimed at him, and his leg was bleeding. He wanted snacks in this situation? Crazy bastard. Just get me the tea leaves. It's not like you can kill me. Clara knew that. Only the curse's caster could do something about the curse. If she wanted to save Paul, she had to listen to him. Of course, it was a lie woven by Neo. Necrotic touch, a magic spell, would disappear after his death. It would not linger like a curse. Neo took the tea leaves Clara brought and started making a tea. Sit, he said. Both of them stayed silent after she heeded his words. Clara was furiously thinking of a way to save her brother, while Neo was appreciating Clara. When she attacked him, although enraged, she used a non-lethal attack, and did not dare to kill him before she confirmed her brother's safety. Unluckily for her, her actions worked against her. What do you want? She asked as Neo calmly sipped the tea. And stop, please, my brother is in pain. Neo didn't agree or refuse to her request. He ignored her and focused on the tea. Clara barely held herself back from killing him. "What do I need to do?" she questioned again. Neo answered this time. "Save the queen." He added, "I will remove the death mark from you and your brother if you do that." If Clara removed the curse, the queen could single-handedly overturn the outcome of the rebellion. However, if she refused Neo, Clara did not care if she died, but she didn't want Paul to die along with her. She had to make a choice: the rebellion or her brother. She bit her lips until they bled. Suddenly, Paul called out to her, "Sis, save me, please. It hurts. It hurts so much I want to die." His face was covered in tears, snot and blood. He continued to claw his face and worsen the injuries. Clara's heart shook when she saw the miserable sight. "Are you even human? How can you do that and drink tea like nothing?" she shouted at Neo. "I wasn't the one who killed me." Neo placed the cup on the table. "Why should I be lenient to someone who killed me? He did nothing. I was the one who killed you. And you will die too if you don't accept the deal." Clara abruptly closed her mouth. She could see it. Neo was calm. Too calm. He was used to death. Killing others was no different from breathing for him. He didn't value life. Still, Clara could not make a decision. Was it correct to give up the rebellion for only her brother and herself? No, that was too selfish. "Before you refuse," Neo suddenly spoke, "don't think this will end here." "What do you mean? Remember what bloodline I have. Monarch of Death." Neo nodded. "If you refuse me, I will make sure both of you go through something much worse for the eternity you will spend in the underworld." His words were like a bomb dropped on her head. She wanted to say it was impossible. The god of death, the End's jury, and the Grim Reapers were impartial. But Neo was an exception. He was the Death's inheritor. He came back to life. He did something impossible. It was very likely he was capable of achieving what he just said. Clara wanted to take time and think before answering. However, every second she wasted thinking was another second where his brother underwent unimaginable pain. "I will do it." She bit her lips. "I will do as you said. So please stop hurting my brother. Let him be for a few minutes. I want to hear him scream." Neo looked at the time. There were 2 hours left until the immortal recharged. If he let Paul go, what was he supposed to do? Dance? He had a reason to stall for time with his answer, even if he looked like a psychopath. As minutes went by, Clara thought about killing Neo countless times. However, she recalled his warning and stayed put. She was far stronger than Neo, and still she was helpless. Clara felt miserable. It was 1 a.m. when Neo finally moved. "We should save the queen, she has only a few hours left." He picked Elizabeth up in a princess carry and made her lie on the bed. Her body was hot and she was barely breathing. The injury on his leg sent jolts of pain across his body when he moved. However, he kept his face expressionless to maintain the far section of being the one in control. He placed a chair next to bed and sat on it. "Transfer her curse to me. Paul, remove the death mark on him first." Neo snapped his fingers and Paul stopped screaming. He frothed from his mouth and lost consciousness. The death mark has stopped devouring his life force violently so he doesn't feel pain. But he is still losing it at a rapid pace. Neo looked at her with a chilling gaze. "Don't think about playing any stupid games with me, if you don't want to win stupid prizes," he warned her. Clara nodded. I'll start the transfer. You need to have physical contact with the queen first." He grabbed Elizabeth's palm. Clara closed her eyes and focused. Purple hues appeared around her. They seeped into the queen's body. A few minutes passed but nothing happened. Clara opened her eyes with a snap. She was breathing heavily. "It's not working. She isn't letting go of the curse." Neo's face darkened. "Try again." Another 5 minutes passed after Clara's new attempt. There was no change. Now it was clear to Neo, she wants to die. Clara stiffened when she heard him. I guess that makes sense after seeing someone she raised trying to kill her. While he had a calm expression, his anxiety was slowly starting to increase. If the Queen died, he was fucked. There were more rebel members than just Clara and Paul. When they returned and found out Neo tried to save the Queen, they wouldn't let him go. Clara was listening to him because her brother was cursed, but others were not the same. Saving Queen was the only way for him to survive. Damn it, why is she refusing to let go of the curse? Neo would simply die and revive since his immortal was recharged. He was not worried about it. He should have not been worried. The plan had gone without a hitch until the last stage. However, the Queen's refusal was a major problem. Try again, he told Clara. They attempted the ritual several times. All of them ended in failures. The time of Queen's death slowly approached. Neo's brows furrowed. What should he do? Was there a way to motivate the Queen? Tell her you don't want her to die and try again, Neo ordered. Clara listened to his words. Nothing changed. Put more sincerity into your request. Again, her words made no difference. Put more sincerity into your request, he ordered. Clara tried. Her words made no difference. Neo snapped his fingers and retrigged the violent devouring of Paul's death mark. He woke up with a startle and let out blood-curdling screams. What are you doing? Why are you harming Paul? I'm warning you. If the Queen dies, don't think I'll let you two go. Dark lines appeared on Neo's face. He couldn't think of anything to save the Queen. Not much time was left. Please save me, Mum, Paul spoke in a whimper. Neo frowned when he saw his pathetic actions. However, the tyrant Queen's fingers twitched. She heard Paul? Neo looked at Clara. His eyes told her what she needed to do. She opened her mouth. Mum, please wake up. I don't want you to die. The tyrant Queen reacted. Just when Neo thought he found a way out of the situation, he felt an incredible sense of sleepiness attacking him. What are you doing to me? He glared at Clara. Huh? Clara shouted. Hey, what's happening to you? Her words hinted that she wasn't behind the drowsiness. Before Neo could do something, he fell asleep. Bright sunlight pierced through Neo's eyelids. He woke up with a grunt. I feel like fuck. Rubbing his hair, he scanned his surroundings. He was at a harbor where a proud, wide, broken ship was docked. Countless citizens were gathered in the area. Listening to them, Neo found out that they were celebrating their Queen's, safe return. Where am I? Neo remembered falling unconscious while trying to save the Queen. He pushed through the crowds to find out what was happening. His eyes widened. He saw a young Elizabeth, with dark, sunken cheeks, coming out of the ship. She looked famished. In her hands, a little girl, 5 or 6 months old, slept. Elizabeth and Amelia? He thought. A guard approached Elizabeth. What about the king and the prince, my queen? The guard asked. Elizabeth shook her head. She tried to calm the citizens and the guards, but their sorrow was palpable. No one seemed in their right mind. Biting her lips, she hid her tears, and donned an expressionless mask. Stop crying. We don't have much time left. Elizabeth spoke with a firm voice. The Falcon pirates will arrive on our island in a few weeks. We have to prepare and there are survivors on the ship. Take care of them. My queen, what about reinforcements? Can't we ask other countries for help? The guard asked with a fearful expression. I've tried but they refused. Our country has no longer anything of value to give them. They have no need to help us. The queen moved towards the palace. The people were shocked and helpless. They seemed sure of their eventual demise at the hands of the pirates. However, seeing the queen, who stood firm, they regained a bit of hope. The soldiers and the citizens got to work. After a bit of the time, Neo noticed familiar people among the survivors of the ship. Paul and Clara. Both of them were kids. Paul, only a few months or perhaps of the same age as Amelia, and Clara, a year or two older. Neo was scouting the surroundings when he heard someone talk to him. The queen had been living with her husband until now. Her ship was attacked on her way here. Turning around, he noticed a 10-year-old Amelia. Number She looked similar to Amelia, but something was different. He couldn't put a finger on it. Still, he could tell she was not Amelia. "Who are you?" he asked. "Guess who I am?" She gave a cheeky smile. "Elizabeth's secret child." She stared at him as if looking at an idiot. "No one can talk or see you except me. Shouldn't you have thought I was this dreamscape's owner?" "Oh." Neo's eyes slightly widened. He looked at her carefully. "I didn't know you were a pervert who thought of herself as a kid, despite being so old? You weren't going to call me old, right?" The pressure of the tyrant queen surrounded her. Neo took a step back and shook his head unconsciously. "I wasn't." "Good," she smiled. "Follow me." They walked on the beach alone. Neo knew he had to persuade her to transfer the curse to him, but judging from the situation, it seemed Elizabeth pulled him here for a reason. She must have something to say to him. He decided to hear her. "The pirates won't be able to defeat my country," she told him. "I know. Since the mermaid country is still standing, you must have won against the pirates." "That's not it." She shook her head. "The pirates never attacked. After all," she turned on her heels and faced him. "They were annihilated when they attacked the ship. Why didn't you tell your people about it? All of them are worrying the pirates will attack again after their ambush on the ship failed." Elizabeth let out a smirk. It was a good thing she was a kid, otherwise Neo might have received a heart attack seeing her smile so much. "I couldn't tell them how the pirates were defeated. Can you guess how it happened?" Neo thought about it. The answer was clear. She did it with the help of the tremor-ranked spell of the mermaid country. Unlike what everyone thought, the spell was not the country's heritage. It was given to Elizabeth by Amelia's father, the great ocean god, Poseidon, when the pirates attacked. This was revealed in the novel. No one knew the true identity of Elizabeth's husband other than her. "You can't guess it?" Neo stayed silent. "The pirates were defeated by my twin sister." It was the first time he heard about Elizabeth having a sister, much less a twin. She laughed when she saw his expression. "So even you can make a face like that? Twin sister?" he asked. "Yes, my twin sister. She was Amelia's birth mother and the wife of the great ocean god, Poseidon." "What?" Chapter 20, The Truth That Was Never Shown in the Novel. "What?" Neo was dumbfounded. Elizabeth explained to him. Her sister lived in secrecy. No one knew she even existed. Her sole purpose was to replace Elizabeth if she was assassinated. The heirs of Mermaid Country had been assassinated countless times when the country refused other nations' demand in the past. The practice of having a hidden heir came into existence due to it. My sister didn't like a life like that and ran away. After her disappearance, my parents grew, well, let's just say my life became not so good anymore. I was married to a prince of another country and had to live with them. He never loved me." She chuckled. "Turned out he liked men. To hide the secret, I had to undergo insemination. I gave birth to Clara and Paul." As he heard her, his mind was thrown into chaos. Amelia was her sister's daughter? Clara and Paul were her children? It sounded like nonsense. However, a lot of things made sense. It explained why she would take care of two orphans so much and why was she hurt when Clara and Paul tried to kill her. They were her actual children, not just adopted. Thinking logically, since Amelia looked similar to her, and no one knew Elizabeth's sister's existence, she had no choice but to act as if Amelia was her daughter. "When the pirates attacked the ship, my sister returned with Amelia. She defeated the pirates, and gave me the tremor-ranked spell and Amelia, saying she was on a run and had to leave as her life was in danger. She asked me to protect Amelia before she left." After explaining everything, she looked at Neo to know what he thought about her life. This was the first time she told someone about it. There was a single thought in his mind. What the fucking abracadabra shit was this? Was why something so important never explained in the novel? Maybe the author planned to reveal this during the final arc. Neo calmed down after reaching a conclusion. "Why are you telling me all this? I don't care about your past." His words made Elizabeth freeze. A downcast expression appeared on her face. Right, why would anyone care about me? She returned to her tyrant queen demeanor. I don't want to live. Leave. I have no intention of giving my curse to you. No, I won't leave you. He stared at her with a determined gaze. You won't die as long as I'm here. If she died, Neo would be in deep shit. And she had to give him the tremor-ranked spell and the replica of Poseidon's trident. What? You just said you don't care about me and now you don't want me to die? Are you making fun of me? A terrifying pressure descended. Don't overstep your boundaries, kin of death. Her chilling voice sent shivers down his spine. However, he maintained his stance. I'm not making fun of you. It's you who are making a mockery of yourself. What are you trying to achieve by telling me about your past? You just want someone to acknowledge you. Elizabeth flinched as if he had hit the nail on the head. He continued, does your life have meaning only if others say you are important? Number. Stop trying to look at others for support. You and only you can determine the value of your life. He stood before her and looked down at her. Not me, not my acknowledgement, and not your children. That's easy for you to say. Elizabeth clenched her fist and let go of her mask for the tyrant. She screamed from the depth of her heart. No one wants me to live. They curse at me every day as if I'm blight on their life. Even my children think it's better if I die. Not everyone. Neo answered with a calm tone. I, for one, want you to live. And Amelia too. He added, did you know, after Amelia first met me, she thought I would kill her? But when the slightest chance appeared, she tried to take the divine water pond to save you, even if that put her life in danger. Elizabeth lowered her face. Her shoulders shook. She loves you. But I am a tyrant. She knows it and I know it too. Silence descended between the two. Only the noise of the sea and Elizabeth's hiccups continued. Tears dripped onto the sandy beach. I'm not crying. I don't see any tears. A tyrant never cries. Is that so? If you tell anyone what happened here, I'll imprison you and torture you. Sounds painful. He smiled. Does that mean you are ready to leave with me? She wiped her tears but didn't look up. Hold my hand if you want to leave together, she said. He followed her words. I don't care what happens to you after you take my curse. Even if you die, it's your fault. Just as they were about to disappear, he heard a small whisper. Thank you. She raised her head and smiled at him. It wasn't scary like her usual smiles. Her smile was lovely. Neo woke up with a groan. Not much time passed since he lost consciousness. The hours he spent with Elizabeth in the dreamscape were mere moments in reality. What's happening to you? Stop shouting, he ordered, irritated. I thought you were about to lose consciousness. You don't need to think. Just do what you are told. Clara clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palms, but she did not talk back. Suddenly, the purple veins on Elizabeth's body wriggled. They moved towards her arm and seeped into Neo's arm as he held her hand. The curse is transferring. She let go of it. Clara exclaimed. Neo grunted. The pain was beyond anything he imagined. He felt he was skinned alive and dipped into salt water. She had been enduring this for days? He shuddered. His skin cracked, revealing purple veins, and his body rapidly deteriorated. He felt someone grabbing his hand. Raising his eyes, he noticed Elizabeth looking at him with a stone-cold gaze. She looked calm, but the warmth of her hand revealed her worries. Elizabeth tried to sit, but Neo stopped her. Rest. Don't worry, these two won't do anything to you. His lips turned black and his nails started to fall off. It didn't take long for him to lose his eyesight and hearing. I'll back. Neo tried to smile, only to fail miserably. It made her heart ache. Don't forget. I'm immortal. He went limp in her hands. Elizabeth had no choice to believe his words, because she did not think she could forgive herself if he never woke up again.